Imagine, just for a second, you standing completely alone on the jagged edge of a freezing mountain peak. The wind is howling, violently rushing past these cold cliffs. You look down, and the valley stretches out way further than you can even see. Welcome back to This Explainer. Today, we're following Aiden, an eagle who's lived his entire life down in the dirt with chickens as he stands on this exact precipice. Way down below, his tiny, familiar farm is just carrying on as usual. The chickens are pecking at the dirt, completely safe. But as Aiden stands up high, breathing in that thin, icy mountain air, something inside him has totally shifted.
Down there, everything is familiar. Everything is perfectly safe. But for the very first time in his life, that safety doesn't feel like a warm home anymore. Looking down at the only life he's ever known, it actually feels like a cage. And, think about how often this happens in our own lives, right? Those familiar routines, the safe choices we've completely relied on, suddenly start feeling suffocating. Like they're literally locking us away from the massive sky we were actually meant to explore.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the cage of comfort. Recognizing the bounds of the familiar. So up on this cold, isolating cliff, Aiden isn't totally alone. The old eagle, his mentor who has soared through these boundless skies for years, is waiting quietly right at the edge of the drop. And without even turning around, he asks Aiden a simple, absolutely terrifying question. Are you ready?
Aiden looks out into that endless sky, and his body just reacts. His heart is pounding out of his chest, and his legs are literally trembling so hard he can barely stand. "I don't know," he whispers, totally overwhelmed by the massive unknown staring back at him. And the old eagle? He just smiles. He says, "Neither did I on my first flight." Aiden is completely stunned. "You were afraid too?" he asks, and the mentor gives a soft laugh, totally validating that paralyzing terror we all feel when stepping into the unknown. He just looks at him and says, "Every eagle is."
Moving to Section 2, the nature of courage, redefining bravery. What's happening here is a massive, profound shift in how we actually view our own fears. We almost always wait for fear to just magically disappear before we do something, right? We think being brave means being completely fearless, but the old eagle is about to completely shatter that illusion. He turns to Aiden and drops this absolute truth bomb. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to move even when fear is standing beside you. Really let the weight of that sink in. The core lesson here is that true bravery absolutely requires fear to be in the room. If you aren't terrified, it doesn't take courage. The real power isn't in banishing the fear. It's in letting it stand right next to you, looking it dead in the eye and taking the step forward anyway. The old eagle then points a wing out toward the vast valley below and says, "Tell me, what do you see?" Aiden looks really carefully, scanning the whole horizon. He starts to truly notice the sheer scale of it all. He sees the mountains, the rivers, the forests, and finally, tucked way, way far away in the distance, he sees the little farm. The mentor is actively forcing him to expand his perspective, to see that the world is infinitely bigger than the tiny patch of dirt he grew up on. The old eagle nods and says, "Exactly." "Your world has always been much bigger than the place where you grew up," the mentor tells him. But then he delivers this really hard truth. "But you'll never discover it if you refuse to leave your comfort zone." And wow, isn't that a direct mirror to our own lives? We all stand on these psychological cliff edges. We have these massive horizons and potentials waiting for us, but they are completely invisible as long as we're stubbornly gripping the edges of what we already know. Section 3, choosing your inner voice. The battle against self-doubt. Aiden slowly inches closer to the absolute edge of the rock. The wind is getting sharper, whipping violently all around him. Every single instinct inside him is just screaming to step back to safety. His mind starts flooding with this rising, suffocating panic. What if I fall? What if I totally fail? What if the chickens back at the farm are right about me this whole time? Think about the competing voices in your own head when you're scared. The old eagle steps up beside him and says, "Listen carefully. Your mind will always give you two voices." It's that classic imposter syndrome, right? One voice, the voice of doubt, will scream every possible reason to stay safe on the ground. It highlights your failures. But then there's that other voice, the one that quietly whispers, "You were born for more." The old eagle looks Aiden dead in the eye and says, "The voice you choose to believe will decide your future." Aiden closes his eyes, his heart is just racing now, and all these buried memories start flashing through his mind at a dizzying speed. He remembers years ago the constant mocking insults from the chickens. "You're strange, stay on the ground." Then he flashes to a few months ago, that very first time he accidentally jumped higher than every other bird in the yard. He remembers yesterday, looking up in pure wonder at an eagle soaring effortlessly above the mountains. And in that rapid rush, it hits him like a ton of bricks. His dream of flying was never given to him by the old eagle. It was always, always inside him, just buried under years of other people's doubts. Section 4. The Leap of Faith. Trusting Your Wings. The old eagle takes a step back, giving Aiden the space he needs for literally the most important moment of his entire life. In a quiet, steady voice, he says, "The sky has been waiting for you, long before you were ready. Now, trust the wings you were given." Aiden takes one long, deep breath. The wind is roaring in his ears, but in his mind, the world goes perfectly silent. Gathering every single ounce of courage in his body, he jumped. For one utterly terrifying, totally silent moment, he just fell. Gravity completely took over. The wind wasn't holding him up, it was violently ripping past his feathers. The rocky ground way, way below was rushing up at him at this dizzying, sickening speed. Pure terror exploded in his brain. That voice of doubt just screamed at the top of its lungs. I knew this was a mistake. I'm falling. I'm going to die. In that massive split second of freefall, leaving the total safety of the farm felt like a fatal error. Absolute panic overrode every single rational thought. But then, cutting straight through that blinding panic, the old eagle's voice echoed powerfully across the whole valley. "Spread your wings!" Instantly, pure, deeply buried instinct just took the wheel. Aiden stretched those massive wings out as wide as he possibly could, and suddenly, boom, the wind caught them. That awful plummeting feeling vanished, replaced by this incredible rushing lift. He wasn't falling anymore, he was rising, higher and higher. Section 5. Owning the Sky. Meeting Your True Self. The frantic, heart-stopping rush of that fall is totally gone now. The air is carrying him so effortlessly across this massive valley. It's like the majestic beauty of the whole world just opens up around him, grand and completely awe-inspiring. Those huge mountains that used to look like insurmountable, cowering walls from the dusty farmyard, they're now just lying gently beneath him. The roaring rivers look like these tiny, sparkling silver ribbons winding through the green earth. The clouds aren't this distant, unreachable ceiling anymore. They're floating literally right beside him. For the very first time in his life, Aiden isn't straining his neck to look up at the sky, he's actually a part of it. Tears start welling up in his eyes as the freezing wind rushes over his wings. But these aren't tears of fear anymore, not at all. They're tears of this profound, overwhelming sense of belonging. Because in that suspended, beautiful moment, hovering high above the earth, he finally, truly gets it. He had never been born to live on the ground. The old eagle glides up really smoothly beside him, looking so proud of the new flyer, and asks softly, "How does it feel?" Aiden looks out toward that endless horizon, just soaking in the sheer vastness of this new reality, and quietly says, "It feels like I finally met the person I was always meant to become." I mean, wow, that is the ultimate psychological reward right there. That's exactly what is waiting on the other side of conquering our self-doubt and stepping fully into what we're actually capable of. The old eagle nods deeply, soaking in this gorgeous, golden sunset, and delivers one final, absolutely crucial lesson. He says, never forget this feeling, because the world will always try to pull you back to the ground. Your job is to keep choosing the sky. Greatness, courage, self-actualization, these aren't just one-and-done events. Gravity is always going to be there. The doubts of other people will always be there. Living up to your true potential is a continuous, everyday choice. As Aiden and the old eagle soar off into that warm sunset together, Aiden feels like his journey is finally complete. He faced his biggest fear and found where he truly belongs. But the absolute greatest lesson of his life is actually still waiting for him, and we are going to explore exactly what that is in part 4. But before we wrap up this explainer, I want you to think about the voices in your own head. Think about the comfort of your own cage and the edges of your own cliffs. When gravity and doubt inevitably try to pull you back down to the safety of the ground, will you keep choosing the sky?